I'm Ashley, 27, and I never thought my brother Ryan's wedding would be the day I finally stood up for myself. After contributing $5,000 I could barely afford, I discovered my seat tucked against the bathroom wall while strangers got prime tables. Years of living in Ryan's shadow prepared me for disappointment, but Stephanie's deliberate humiliation crossed a line. The crystal centerpieces my money paid for sparkled from every table except mine. Something inside me snapped. 10 years of being the family afterthought ended today. Before I share what happened next, where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever reached your breaking point with family and had to choose between peace and self-respect. Growing up, Ryan and I were inseparable. Only 2 years apart, we built fort cities in our backyard, defended each other from neighborhood bullies, and shared ice cream cones even when we had different favorite flavors. I idolized my older brother. He was my protector, my confidant, my best friend. But as we entered our teens, the dynamics shifted subtly, then dramatically. Ryan excelled at everything. He maintained a perfect GPA while quarterbacking the football team to state championships. His charisma earned him student body president, and his science fair projects consistently advanced to nationals. Meanwhile, I struggled to find my niche, bouncing between activities without standing out in any. Our parents never explicitly compared us, but they didn't need to. Their actions spoke volumes. They'd reschedule family vacations around Ryan's tournament dates but forgot my photography exhibition. They attended every one of his games but missed half my choir performances due to scheduling conflicts. Dad proudly displayed Ryan's trophies in the living room while my achievement certificates somehow ended up in a drawer. Despite the obvious favoritism, I maintained my loyalty to Ryan. It wasn't his fault our parents put him on a pedestal. We remained close through high school and college, though our paths diverged significantly. Ryan pursued finance at an Ivy League school on scholarship, while I attended state college, discovering my passion for photography. After graduation, I poured my savings into opening a small photography studio downtown. The business struggled initially. I took wedding gigs and family portraits while trying to build my artistic portfolio. Meanwhile, Ryan landed a junior executive position at a prestigious firm, bought a luxury condo at 24, and drove the car our parents had once dreamed of owning. Then Stephanie entered our lives 3 years ago. Ryan met her at a charity gala. She was the event coordinator with connections to the city's elite. Beautiful, polished, and ambitious, she complemented Ryan perfectly in my parents' eyes. Initially, Stephanie befriended me, showing genuine interest in my photography and even recommending my services to her upscale connections. I was thrilled that my brother had found someone who seemed to value me too. The change was gradual. First came the subtle put-downs disguised as helpful advice. You should really upgrade your camera equipment if you want to attract better clients, Ashley. Then the competitive behavior, outbidding me on a commercial space I'd mentioned wanting for a studio expansion, only to lease it to her friend instead. Still, I brushed these incidents off as misunderstandings. Family gatherings became increasingly uncomfortable. Stephanie would interrupt my stories to redirect attention to Ryan's latest accomplishment. She accidentally spilled wine on one of my portfolio prints I'd brought to show the family. When I secured a small local arts grant, she diminished it by mentioning her friend who'd received one 3 times larger. Through it all, Ryan seemed oblivious or unwilling to see the dynamic. When I tried to discuss it with him privately, he accused me of being jealous of their success. Stephanie's just driven, he'd say. Maybe you could learn something from her ambition. That cut deep. I was working 16-hour days to keep my studio afloat, taking on corporate headshot contracts I disliked to pay the bills, while pursuing the artistic work that fed my soul. I'd recently invested in studio expansion, taking a financial risk that kept me awake at night. But to Ryan, influenced by Stephanie's narrative, I wasn't ambitious enough. Last Thanksgiving, the pattern reached a new low. I'd finally had a breakthrough. A local gallery had agreed to feature my urban landscape series. When I announced it during dinner, my mother nodded politely before immediately asking Ryan about his promotion prospects. Stephanie smirked slightly, then launched into a detailed story about her college friend whose photographs were being featured in a gallery in New York, not just locally. I caught my father's sympathetic glance, the first acknowledgement that someone else noticed the pattern. But he said nothing, and the moment passed. Later that night, I overheard Stephanie telling Ryan that my photography was nice but derivative and that I should consider it more of a hobby than a career path. Ryan didn't defend me. He laughed. Still, when Ryan called to announce their engagement 2 months later, I pushed aside my hurt and congratulated him sincerely. He was my brother, and despite everything, I loved him and wanted his happiness. I just didn't realize how much that love would cost me. Ryan and Stephanie's engagement party set the tone for what was to come. Held at an exclusive rooftop venue overlooking the city skyline, it featured champagne fountains, a string quartet, and centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I wore my best dress, the one I saved for meeting important clients, and brought a thoughtfully framed photograph I'd taken of Ryan and Stephanie at Christmas as my gift. When I arrived, Stephanie was surrounded by a group of impeccably dressed women who turned out to be her chosen bridesmaids, all college friends from wealthy families. I waited for an opportunity to congratulate her, expecting she might pull me aside to ask me to join the bridal party. After all, I was the groom's only sister. "Ashley, you made it," Stephanie air-kissed my cheeks when I finally approached. "Love the dress, vintage, right?" "It wasn't. Have you met my bridesmaids? We were all Delta Gamma together." "I thought maybe." I started, then stopped myself. The realization that I wouldn't be a bridesmaid struck me like a physical blow. "Oh, sweetie," Stephanie lowered her voice, squeezing my arm. "I would have loved to include you, but we're keeping it to just 8 bridesmaids. College sisters, you know? And Ryan completely understands." I nodded, swallowing my disappointment. Later that night, I found Ryan by the bar and tried to hide my hurt. "Congratulations, big brother. She's really something." "Thanks, Ash." He hugged me, champagne sloshing slightly. "It's going to be epic. Stephanie has amazing vision." "I noticed I'm not a bridesmaid," I said carefully. "I just thought, as your sister." Ryan's expression shifted to discomfort. "Yeah, about that. Stephanie feels really bad, but all her bridesmaids have been planning this since college. You understand, right? It's her day." I forced a smile. "Of course. I just want you both to be happy." As wedding planning kicked into high gear, my exclusion became a pattern. Stephanie selected a luxury mountain resort that required guests to stay a minimum of 3 nights at premium rates. The save-the-dates arrived letterpressed on handmade paper. Everything screamed excessive expense. Family planning meetings became exercises in diplomatic silence. When I suggested a photographer colleague who did beautiful work at reasonable rates, Stephanie dismissed the idea. "We've already booked Vincent DeLuca," she said, naming a celebrity photographer whose rates started at $15,000. "The photos will be in several magazines." My mother nodded appreciatively while my father winced slightly at what I assumed was the cost. Nobody asked how my business was doing or if I could afford the required bridesmaid dress, not that I needed one anymore. 3 months before the wedding, the bomb dropped. My parents called a family dinner, which Stephanie and Ryan attended. After dessert, my father cleared his throat. "As you know, this wedding is going to be substantial," he began. "Your mother and I are contributing significantly, but Ryan and Stephanie have asked if other family members might help with certain aspects." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "We thought it would be meaningful if everyone participated," Stephanie added sweetly. "Your parents are handling the venue and catering, my parents are doing the flowers and entertainment, and we thought maybe you could contribute to the decor fund? The centerpieces, specifically." Ryan looked uncomfortable but nodded. "It would mean a lot, Ash. We're talking about crystal pieces that guests can take home as mementos." "How much are you thinking?" I asked, already dreading the answer. 5,000 would cover it, Stephanie said casually, as if she'd asked to borrow $5. I nearly choked. $5,000 was my emergency fund, plus what I'd been saving for a new professional lens. It represented countless extra gigs and late nights. That's a lot for me right now, I said carefully. The studio expansion has me stretched pretty thin. We understand it's a sacrifice, my mother interjected. But we're all making them for Ryan's special day. I looked at my brother, the boy who once split his last cookie with me when I dropped mine. Can I think about it? Later that night, Ryan called. Ash, I know it's a lot to ask. But Stephanie's really counting on those centerpieces. She says they'll pull the whole aesthetic together. Ryan, I literally don't have that kind of money available. What about that arts grant you got? That's for the business, not for wedding decorations. A pause. Well, couldn't you take a few extra wedding photography jobs? Just temporarily? I closed my eyes, fighting frustration. I'm already working every weekend. Look, his voice softened, if you do this, Stephanie promised you'll be seated at a prime table, right up front with the family. She's really trying to include you. That manipulation worked. The idea of finally being acknowledged properly, of being visibly valued as Ryan's sister, overcame my financial concerns. Okay, I agreed. I'll make it work. And make it work I did. I took on corporate event photography I'd normally decline. I photographed 3 destination weddings back-to-back, editing through the nights in hotel rooms. I pawned my grandmother's pearl earrings, the only valuable thing I owned. And finally, I emptied my equipment upgrade fund and emergency savings. When I handed Ryan the check, he hugged me tightly. This means the world to us, Ash. You're the best sister. Stephanie took the check with a practiced smile. These centerpieces will be stunning, Swarovski crystal with embedded lighting. And don't worry, we've got you at table 3, right up with the immediate family. I believed her. After all, my $5,000 had bought me a place at the family table. Or so I thought. The rehearsal dinner was held at Azure, the most exclusive restaurant in the city, where reservations typically required months of advance planning. I arrived early, wearing a new dress I'd splurged on despite my depleted finances. The deep blue silk made me feel confident, and I'd styled my hair in an elegant updo. For once, I wanted to look like I belonged in the glossy world Ryan and Stephanie inhabited. The maitre d' guided me through the restaurant's candlelit interior to the private room at the back. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over immaculately set tables, each adorned with white roses and gold-rimmed china. A string quartet played softly in the corner. I spotted Ryan near the bar, surrounded by groomsmen in tailored suits. Ashley. He waved me over, giving me a quick one-armed hug. You look great. Thanks, I smiled, genuinely happy to see him relaxed and happy. This place is incredible. Wait till you taste the food. The chef prepared a special menu just for us. Stephanie appeared, resplendent in a white designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly studio rent. Ashley, you made it, she said, air-kissing my cheeks. Love the dress. TJ Maxx? It wasn't. I'd saved for months for this dress. Where should I sit? I asked, ignoring the jab. Oh, you're at table 3, she said, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the room. The seating chart is by the entrance. I thanked her and moved away, checking the elegant calligraphy chart. Table 1 held the bride, groom, and their parents. Table 2 featured the maid of honor, best man, and wedding party. Table 3, I assumed, would be for immediate family. But my name wasn't there. I checked again, running my finger down the lists. Finally, I found Ashley Bennett at table 7, the farthest table from the main party, tucked into a corner near the kitchen entrance. My tablemates were my great-aunt Mildred, who was practically deaf, my father's cousin whom I'd met twice in my life, and several of Stephanie's distant relatives. Surely this was a mistake. Hadn't Ryan said I'd be seated with family? As I stood there, confused, I overheard Stephanie talking to her maid of honor. No, we had to put the Abbotts at table 3. They're potential investors in Ryan's new fund. Ashley's just the sister, she won't care where she sits. My cheeks burned. Just the sister. The sister who had contributed $5,000 she couldn't afford. I approached Ryan during a moment when he stood alone. Hey, there seems to be a mix-up with the seating. I'm all the way back at table 7. Ryan's expression flickered with momentary discomfort. Oh, yeah. There was a last-minute change. Some important business connections of Stephanie's father needed to be moved up. But you said I'd be with family. He glanced over my shoulder, clearly looking for an escape. It's just the rehearsal dinner, Ash. The wedding seating will be different. He lowered his voice. Look, it's Stephanie's vision for everything to be perfect. Just go with it, okay? For me? I stared at my brother, this person I'd looked up to my entire life, now asking me to accept being shuffled aside like an inconvenient afterthought. Ryan, I gave $5,000 for this wedding. And we appreciate it. But that doesn't mean, he stopped himself, sighing. Please don't make this a thing. Not tonight. I felt something shift inside me, a small crack in the foundation of our relationship. But I nodded and walked away, taking my assigned seat at the back table. Throughout the elegant 5-course meal, I sat mostly silent, unable to participate in Great Aunt Mildred's shouted conversations about her cat's digestive issues or Stephanie's uncle's detailed description of his recent knee surgery. From my isolated position, I watched the golden circle of Ryan and Stephanie's world. The laughter, the inside jokes, the easy camaraderie of people who were valued and included. Several times, I caught my mother's eye from her seat at the head table. She offered sympathetic smiles but made no move to address the situation. During dessert, I excused myself to the restroom, locking myself in a stall to call Grace, my best friend since college. They put me at the reject table, I whispered, fighting tears. With people who don't even know my name. That's horrible, Grace said loyally. After everything you've done. Do you want to leave? I could pick you up. I was tempted, so tempted. But some stubborn part of me refused to give Stephanie the satisfaction. No, I'll stick it out. It's just one night. And the wedding tomorrow? Ryan promised the seating would be different. After composing myself, I returned to find the tables being cleared for dancing. Stephanie intercepted me near the bar. Ashley, are you having a good time? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The food was delicious, I replied neutrally. I noticed you seemed a little quiet back there. She lowered her voice to a confidential tone. I just wanted to apologize for the seating. We had a last-minute RSVP from the Abbotts, they're potentially investing 7 figures in Ryan's new project. I knew you'd understand the need to accommodate them. Before I could respond, she continued, besides, I thought you'd enjoy sitting with the more relaxed crowd. You always seem so uncomfortable with Ryan's business associates. She patted my arm. Anyway, for the wedding, we've got you at a lovely table. It's not with the immediate family, those tables were just so tight, but it's a really nice location. The condescension in her tone made my stomach turn. I forced myself to nod politely, knowing that any objection would be twisted into me being difficult or jealous. As she swept away to rejoin Ryan, I ordered a glass of wine and retreated to a quiet corner. For the rest of the evening, I observed my brother, laughing, dancing, working the room with Stephanie at his side. He approached me only once, asking perfunctorily if I was enjoying myself before being pulled away to meet someone super important according to Stephanie. As the night wound down, I slipped out without saying goodbye. In my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed and contemplated calling the whole thing off, sending my regrets and flying home tomorrow. But the thought of Ryan's disappointment, of my parents' disapproval, of Stephanie's satisfaction at driving me away, kept me from making that call. Instead, I laid out my dress for tomorrow, a soft rose-colored gown I'd had altered twice to fit perfectly. Tomorrow would be different, I told myself. I was Ryan's only sister. Surely at his actual wedding, I would be acknowledged properly. I fell asleep clinging to that hope, ignoring the growing certainty that tomorrow would only bring more of the same. I woke early on Ryan's wedding day with renewed determination. Yesterday's slights belonged to yesterday. Today, I would focus solely on celebrating my brother's happiness. I ordered room service, savoring scrambled eggs and coffee while scrolling through old photos of Ryan and me as kids, gap-toothed grins and skinned knees, arms thrown carelessly around each other's shoulders. The wedding wasn't until 4 p.m., leaving me a long morning to prepare. I knew the bridesmaids would be gathered in Stephanie's presidential suite, getting their hair and makeup professionally done, sipping champagne, and taking countless photos for social media. As the groom's sister, but not a bridesmaid, I hadn't been invited to join. I took my time showering and applying my makeup, using the techniques I'd learned from YouTube tutorials for special occasions. My hands trembled slightly as I attached the rhinestone hair clip I'd bought to match my dress. The room felt too quiet, too lonely for what should have been a joyful family day. At noon, I texted Ryan, "Good morning, groom. Hope you're ready for the big day. When should I come over to the guy's suite?" His response came 30 minutes later, "Pretty hectic here. See you at the venue." I swallowed my disappointment and headed downstairs to the hotel restaurant for lunch. As I waited for my salad, I spotted my parents entering with Stephanie's parents, the four of them laughing comfortably together. They didn't see me tucked away in the corner booth, and I didn't call out to them. Something about their easy camaraderie made me feel even more like an outsider. At 2 p.m., I arrived at the wedding venue, a stunning mountain lodge with panoramic views of the lake and surrounding peaks. Staff bustled about arranging flowers and adjusting table settings in the grand reception hall. I followed signs to the wedding party preparation area, hoping to at least see Ryan before the ceremony. A harried-looking wedding planner intercepted me in the hallway. "Are you with the bride or groom?" "I'm the groom's sister," I explained. "Oh." She consulted her tablet. "You're not on my wedding party list. The ceremony doesn't start until 4, and guests should arrive after 3:30. "I know, but I thought I could see my brother before. The groomsmen are doing photos right now, and then they have a private toast scheduled." She glanced at her watch. "But if you want to help, we could use someone to arrange these programs on the ceremony chairs." That's how I spent the next hour, placing programs on 200 chairs while trying not to wrinkle my carefully steamed dress. As I worked, Stephanie's mother spotted me and came over. "Ashley, dear, why are you doing manual labor in that lovely dress?" Her voice carried just enough surprise to make me feel foolish. "Just helping out," I replied, straightening. She looked me up and down. "That color is brave for your complexion. And are those shoes comfortable?" The walkway to the ceremony site is all natural stone. Before I could respond, she was called away by the florist with a question about boutonnieres. I checked my phone, still no messages from Ryan or my parents asking where I was or if I needed anything. When I finished with the programs, the wedding planner handed me a box of custom matchbooks with Ryan and Stephanie's names and wedding date. "Could you put these on the cocktail hour tables?" "Just 5 per table." I nodded, increasingly aware that I'd somehow been transformed from sister of the groom to unpaid wedding staff. As I arranged matchbooks, I spotted the bridal party emerge from their preparation room for photos. Stephanie resplendent in a designer gown that shimmered with thousands of hand-sewn crystals, surrounded by her 8 bridesmaids in identical champagne-colored dresses. They were all laughing as the photographer directed them into formation on the terrace. Shortly after, Ryan and his groomsmen appeared from the opposite wing, handsome in tailored tuxedos. My heart leapt at the sight of my brother, so grown up and distinguished. I waved, hoping to catch his attention for just a moment. He saw me and lifted his hand in acknowledgement but was quickly repositioned by the photographer. I stood awkwardly at the edge of the terrace, neither part of the official group nor comfortable walking away. "Excuse me," the photographer called out eventually, "could you move? You're in the background of my shot." Heat rose to my face as I mumbled an apology and retreated inside. In the restroom, I splashed cold water on my wrists and gave myself a stern talk in the mirror. This wasn't about me. Today was Ryan's day, and I would not let my hurt feelings overshadow his happiness. When I emerged, guests had begun to arrive. I smiled and greeted distant relatives and Ryan's college friends, playing the role of the proud sister. No one seemed to find it odd that I wasn't with the wedding party or my parents. I was just another guest, indistinguishable from Ryan's colleagues or Stephanie's cousins. At 3:45, I found my parents near the ceremony site. "There you are, Ashley," my mother said. "We were wondering where you'd gotten to." "I've been here for almost 2 hours," I replied. "Helping set up." My father frowned. "Why were you doing that?" Before I could answer, the wedding planner appeared with a slim gift box. "Ashley Bennett? This is for you, from the bride and groom." Inside was a silver-plated bookmark engraved with the wedding date. A small card read, "Thank you for your support. Love, RNS." I stared at it, trying to feel grateful rather than slighted. Around me, I could see other members of the wedding party receiving their gifts. The bridesmaids had been given monogrammed silk robes and custom jewelry they were already wearing. The groomsmen had received engraved whiskey glasses and cufflinks. A silver bookmark. For $5,000. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace, "How's it going? Are they treating you better today?" I typed back, still on the outside looking in. Beginning to wonder if that's just my permanent position in this family. Her response was immediate, "You deserve better, Ash. Don't let them make you feel small." As guests began taking their seats for the ceremony, I overheard Stephanie's cousin Jennifer complaining to her mother. "She made me change my hairstyle this morning because she said it was too similar to hers. I spent an extra $150 at the salon." "You know how she is," her mother replied. "She couldn't even handle Ryan's sister having decent pictures with him earlier." I heard her tell the photographer to keep Ashley out of the family shots as much as possible. I froze, pretending to check my phone while straining to hear more. "That poor girl," Jennifer continued. "Did you see Stephanie put her on bathroom duty for the reception? Table 19, right against the restroom wall. After she contributed all that money for those centerpieces. Stephanie always did have a mean streak," her mother sighed. "Remember what she did to Melissa in college when Melissa dated that boy Stephanie liked?" They moved out of earshot, leaving me stunned. Bathroom duty? Table 19? Surely that couldn't be right. Ryan had promised me proper family seating. The wedding planner had mentioned a lovely location. They wouldn't really seat me, the groom's only sister, by the bathroom after taking $5,000 from me, would they? As the string quartet began playing, signaling the start of the ceremony, I pushed these worries aside. The ceremony was about to begin, and despite everything, I was about to watch my brother marry the woman he loved. I would focus on that joy, and deal with the rest later. The ceremony was undeniably beautiful. Mountains provided a majestic backdrop as Ryan and Stephanie exchanged vows under an arch dripping with white orchids and roses. I blinked back tears watching my brother's face as Stephanie walked down the aisle on her father's arm. He looked so happy, so certain. In that moment, I felt a surge of love for him that overshadowed my hurt feelings. This was why I was here, to witness this important milestone in his life. The officiant spoke eloquently about partnership and respect. Stephanie's voice trembled emotionally during her personalized vows about finding her perfect match. Ryan promised to cherish and honor her always, to build a life filled with adventure and joy. When they were pronounced husband and wife, I clapped until my hands hurt, genuinely happy for my brother despite everything. During the post-ceremony family photos, I was included, though noticeably positioned at the edge of group shots. When I tried to stand next to Ryan for one photo, Stephanie's wedding planner gently but firmly guided me to the opposite end of the lineup. "The bride's vision is to alternate heights for visual balance," she explained smoothly. Still, there was a brief, precious moment when Ryan pulled me into a spontaneous hug between setups. "Thanks for being here, Ash," he whispered. "It means everything." That single moment of connection gave me renewed hope for the reception. Perhaps yesterday's seating arrangement had truly been an unfortunate necessity rather than a deliberate slight. Maybe tonight, now that they were officially married, Stephanie would be more relaxed about her vision and remember that I was family. The cocktail hour was held on the terrace. I sipped champagne and made conversation with distant relatives, all while scanning the crowd for my parents or Ryan. When the wedding planner began directing guests toward the reception hall, I felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. Time to see where I'd been seated. The reception space was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers hung from exposed wooden beams. Each table featured elaborate floral arrangements surrounding what I recognized as the Swarovski crystal centerpieces my $5,000 had purchased. Tea lights and silver holders cast a warm glow across damask tablecloths. A light band was setting up on a raised platform near the dance floor. Near the entrance, an ornate mirror displayed the seating chart in elegant calligraphy. Guests clustered around it, finding their assigned tables. I waited patiently for my turn, then ran my finger down the alphabetical list. Bennett, Ashley, table 19. I frowned, scanning the room layout portion of the chart. Tables 1, 5 surrounded the dance floor, prime positions for immediate family and VIPs. Tables 6, 12 formed the next ring out. Tables 13, 20 were positioned along the perimeter of the room. Table 19 was not only at the perimeter, it was tucked into a corner directly adjacent to the restrooms, partially obscured by a decorative screen that presumably hid the bathroom doors from the main reception area. I stared at the chart in disbelief. Surely this was a mistake. I approached the wedding planner, who was directing waitstaff near the kitchen entrance. "Excuse me, I think there might be an error with the seating chart. I'm Ashley Bennett, the groom's sister, and it shows me at table 19 by the restrooms." She consulted her tablet. "No, that's correct. Table 19. But I'm the groom's sister," I repeated, thinking she hadn't understood. "Yes, I'm aware." Her tone was polite but firm. The seating chart was approved by the bride personally. There has to be some mistake. Ryan told me I'd be seated with family. She offered a sympathetic but professional smile. "I'm sorry, but I can only follow the approved plan. If you'd like to discuss it with the bride and groom, they'll be available after their entrance and first dance." Humiliated but not wanting to create a scene, I made my way to table 19. It was exactly as bad as I'd feared. The table was indeed pressed against the wall that separated the main reception area from the restrooms. One chair, my chair, according to the place card, was positioned such that the bathroom door would swing within inches of it when opened. My tablemates were an odd assortment, a distant cousin of Stephanie's who was clearly battling a hangover from the previous night, an elderly great-uncle who kept asking me if I was Ryan's girlfriend, a former college roommate of Stephanie's who hadn't made the bridesmaid cut, and two friends of Stephanie's parents who seemed confused about why they were seated so far from their contemporaries. "Quite a location they've given us," Stephanie's college roommate Kimberly remarked dryly. "I dated one of her exes sophomore year. Guess she holds grudges." I managed a weak smile but couldn't bring myself to explain my own presence at the reject table. The first time someone exited the men's restroom, the door swung open and bumped against my chair, confirming my worst fears. I would spend my brother's entire wedding reception being jostled by bathroom traffic. From this isolated position, I watched the grand entrance of the wedding party, followed by Ryan and Stephanie's first dance. They moved gracefully across the floor to All of Me by John Legend, looking like something from a fairy tale. Afterward, my father danced with Stephanie while Ryan danced with his new mother-in-law. No one asked me for a sibling dance. During dinner, served to our table last, with the fish option mysteriously unavailable by the time servers reached us, I observed the room with increasing disillusionment. The crystal centerpieces that had cost me so dearly sparkled on every table, except ours. Table 19 featured a noticeably smaller floral arrangement with no crystal element whatsoever. Between the main course and dessert, I excused myself to use the restroom, ironically just steps from my seat. In the relative privacy of a bathroom stall, I pulled out my phone and searched for the wedding coordinator. Finding a quiet corner in the hallway outside, I approached her with as much dignity as I could muster. "Could you tell me more about the centerpieces? I contributed $5,000 specifically for them." She looked uncomfortable. "The crystal centerpieces? They're Swarovski, custom designed for this event. I noticed table 19 doesn't have one." "Ah." She glanced at her tablet. "According to my notes, the crystal pieces were allocated to tables 1 through 18 only. Table 19 and 20 have the standard floral option." "Do you know how much the centerpieces actually cost? In total?" She hesitated. "I'm not really supposed to discuss financial details." "Please." "I contributed $5,000 specifically for them." After a moment's consideration, she sighed. "The total for all centerpieces was around $4,200. But there were some last-minute changes to the bride's dress that required additional funds. I believe some money was reallocated." My head spun. My $5,000 hadn't even gone entirely to the centerpieces as promised, and I didn't even get to have one at my table. Instead, I was funding Stephanie's dress upgrades while being seated in the worst position in the entire venue. As I made my way back to my table, I caught Stephanie's eye across the room. She was holding court at the head table, radiant in her crystal-embellished gown, partially paid for, I now realized, with my money. For a brief moment, our gazes locked, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not embarrassment or guilt, but something closer to satisfaction. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity, this wasn't an oversight or a logistical necessity. This was deliberate. Stephanie had systematically worked to minimize my presence and importance at every turn, and Ryan had allowed it to happen. I returned to table 19 just as another guest bumped my chair while entering the bathroom. The final humiliation came when the DJ announced it was time to cut the cake. As guests gathered around the elaborate 5-tier creation, I stood at the back, unable to see over the crowd. The moment passed without me witnessing this milestone in my brother's celebration. I returned to my seat, a strange calm settling over me. 3 months of financial sacrifice, years of accepting second-place status in my family, a lifetime of making excuses for being sidelined, all of it crystallized into a single, clarifying thought: I deserved better than this. The bathroom door swung open again, hitting my chair with enough force to slosh my water glass. Something inside me finally snapped. I sat at table 19 for exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes, enduring the constant traffic of bathroom-goers bumping my chair, the muffled sounds of toilets flushing during dinner conversation, and the pitying glances from servers who recognized the indignity of my placement. With each passing minute, my hurt crystallized into something harder, more resolute. During a brief lull in the music, I excused myself and headed to the restroom, the one convenience of my seating assignment. Once inside a stall, I called Grace. "They put me by the bathroom, Grace," I whispered, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The actual bathroom. People keep hitting my chair with the door. And I found out my money went to upgrade Stephanie's dress, not just for centerpieces, which my table doesn't even have." "Oh, Ash." Grace's voice was a mixture of outrage and sympathy. "That's beyond terrible. What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I think I'm done making myself small for people who don't value me." "Good. You deserve better than this treatment. I'm going to talk to them. And then? I think I'm leaving. Do you want me to come get you? I can be there in 2 hours. No, I have my car. I need to do this part myself." After ending the call, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow, eyes clearer, shoulders straighter. I reapplied my lipstick, smoothed my hair, and walked out with purpose. The reception was in full swing now, with guests filling the dance floor. Ryan and Stephanie stood at the edge of the crowd, his arm around her waist as they laughed with a group of friends. I approached them directly, no longer willing to hover at the periphery of my own brother's life. "Ryan," I said when I reached them. "Stephanie." I need to speak with you. Privately. Ryan's smile faltered at my tone. Can it wait, Ash? We're in the middle of. No, I said firmly. It can't wait. Stephanie's eyes narrowed slightly. We're kind of busy celebrating our wedding right now. This will only take a few minutes. I held my ground, aware that nearby guests were beginning to notice the tension. Ryan, ever concerned with appearances, nodded quickly. Let's step into the side room. He guided us toward a small anteroom off the main reception hall, closing the door behind us. What's this about? He asked, his expression a mixture of annoyance and concern. I took a steadying breath. I want to know why I'm seated at table 19, directly against the bathroom wall, after contributing $5,000 to this wedding. Stephanie sighed dramatically. Is that what this interruption is about? Seating? It's not just about seating, I replied evenly. It's about respect. You promised me a place with family. Instead, I'm literally getting hit by the bathroom door every 5 minutes. Ryan at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. Look, there were some last-minute adjustments we had to make. Some important business connections. Stop, I interrupted. Just stop. I understand business connections are important. What I don't understand is why strangers are more important than your only sister. You're being dramatic, Stephanie cut in. We had to seat you somewhere. The casual dismissal in her tone struck me like a physical blow. We had to seat you somewhere. As if my presence was an inconvenience rather than something to be valued. And my $5,000? I asked. The wedding planner told me that only cost $4,200 for all the centerpieces, and that money was reallocated for dress upgrades. Is that true? Ryan and Stephanie exchanged a quick glance that told me everything I needed to know. We adjusted the budget as needed, Ryan said carefully. All the money went to the wedding. A wedding where I'm treated like an afterthought. I looked directly at my brother. Ryan, do you realize I pawned our grandmother's earrings to help pay for this? I took on extra jobs. I emptied my emergency fund. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said simply. You never ask. About my business, my life, my struggles. You just assume I'll always be there, always understanding, always accepting whatever scraps of attention you can spare. Stephanie stepped closer to Ryan, her eyes narrowed. I think you're jealous. You've always been jealous of Ryan's success, and now you're jealous that he's happy with me. I laughed, a short, surprised sound. Jealous? I've spent my entire life being Ryan's biggest supporter. I've celebrated every accomplishment, defended him to everyone, loved him unconditionally. But you know what? I'm done being the only one giving in this relationship. Ryan's expression darkened. What's that supposed to mean? It means I want my money back. Stephanie's perfectly made-up face registered shock. Excuse me? My $5,000. I want it back. Now. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. It was a gift for the wedding. A gift given under false pretenses. You promised me respect and inclusion. Instead, you've deliberately humiliated me at every turn. Ryan lowered his voice to an angry whisper. You can't embarrass us like this. Not during our wedding. I felt a strange calm settle over me. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed, Ryan. You promised me I'd be seated with family. You knew how much that $5,000 meant to me financially. You've watched Stephanie systematically push me aside, and you've done nothing. It's not like you're important to the wedding photos anyway, Stephanie muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Ryan winced but said nothing to defend me. And in that moment of silence, something fundamental shifted inside me. The last thread of hope that my brother would eventually see me, value me, stand up for me, it snapped cleanly. I'm done, I said quietly. I've spent my entire life accepting less than I deserve from this family. I'm not doing it anymore. I turned to Stephanie. I want my money back. Tonight. Or I promise you, I will walk out onto that dance floor and let every single guest know exactly how the bride treats family. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I replied, surprised by the steel in my own voice. I have nothing left to lose. Ryan stepped between us. Ash, please. Let's talk about this tomorrow when everyone's calmer. No. This ends tonight. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, this person I'd loved and admired my whole life. You have a choice right now, Ryan. You can either acknowledge that I've been wronged and fix it, or you can continue to prioritize appearances over actual human decency. But either way, I'm leaving here tonight with my dignity intact. The door opened and Stephanie's father poked his head in. Everything okay in here? The photographer is looking for you too. We need a few more minutes, Dad, Stephanie said tightly. We're handling something. He hesitated, glancing between our tense faces. Should I get your mother, sweetheart? No, Ryan answered quickly. We're fine. Just a small family matter. Once the door closed again, Stephanie turned to me. This is beyond inappropriate. You're making a scene at our wedding over a seating chart. This isn't about a seating chart, I replied. This is about years of disrespect culminating in the most blatant example yet. And I'm done accepting it. Ryan ran a hand through his carefully styled hair. What exactly do you want, Ashley? I already told you. I want my $5,000 back, and then I'm leaving. Stephanie gave an exaggerated sigh. Fine. If writing you a check will end this melodrama, let's do it. Now, I insisted. Not a promise for later. For God's sake, she snapped. The checkbook is in our suite. Then I suggest you get it, I replied calmly. I'll wait here. As Stephanie stormed out, Ryan turned to me, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. I don't understand why you're doing this. It's our wedding day. That's exactly my point, Ryan. It's your wedding day, and you thought it was acceptable to seat your only sister, who sacrificed significantly to contribute to this event, at the worst table in the venue. What does that say about how you value me? He had no answer. I waited in the anteroom alone after Ryan left to join Stephanie in retrieving their checkbook. The muffled sounds of celebration continued beyond the closed door, music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. A world of joy I was no longer part of. Strangely, I felt more relieved than sad. The door opened, and the wedding coordinator entered rather than Ryan or Stephanie. The bride and groom asked me to handle this matter, she said professionally, closing the door behind her. They've authorized me to write you a check from the wedding account. So they couldn't even face me themselves. I nodded, maintaining my composure as she removed a checkbook from her portfolio. The amount is $5,000, correct? She asked, pen poised. Yes. She wrote the check efficiently, tore it from the book, and handed it to me. They've asked me to express that they're sorry for any miscommunication about the seating arrangements. Miscommunication, I repeated flatly. Is that what they're calling it? She offered a sympathetic look that suggested she'd seen her share of wedding drama. For what it's worth, I've coordinated over 200 weddings, and I've never seen a sibling of the bride or groom seated by the restrooms. I appreciated her honesty. Thank you for that. Will you be returning to the reception? She asked. I glanced down at the check in my hand. No. I think we're done here. As I gathered my small evening purse and wrap, the door opened again. This time, it was my parents, with Ryan hovering anxiously behind them. Ashley, what's going on? My mother demanded. Ryan says you're causing problems. Of course that would be his characterization. I'm not causing problems. I'm leaving. Leaving? My father looked bewildered. The reception just started. I'm aware. But I don't see the point in staying where I'm clearly not valued. My mother's expression hardened. This is your brother's wedding day. Whatever issue you have can surely wait until tomorrow. That's exactly what Ryan said, I replied. But no, it can't wait. I've spent my entire life waiting to be valued, waiting to be prioritized, waiting to be treated with basic respect. I'm done waiting. This is about the seating, isn't it? My mother sighed. We noticed you were at the back table, but making a scene isn't the answer. I stared at her in disbelief. You noticed? And did nothing? What were we supposed to do? It's Stephanie's vision for the day. You were supposed to stand up for me, I said, my voice finally breaking. Your daughter. Just once. My father at least had the decency to look ashamed. Ashley, we didn't realize it was that important to you. That's the problem, Dad. You've never realized what's important to me. Ryan pushed past our parents. Ash, come on. Don't leave like this. People will talk. There it is, I said quietly. Your real concern. Not that you've hurt me, but that people might notice. That's not fair, he protested. None of this has been fair, Ryan. I folded the check and placed it in my purse. I hope you and Stephanie have a wonderful life together. I truly do. But I won't be part of it if this is how I'm valued. You're being dramatic, my mother insisted. This is one day. No, Mom. This is a pattern. One I'm finally breaking. I straightened my shoulders. I'm going now. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Ryan's face flushed with anger. So that's it? You take the money and just walk out on my wedding? I'm taking back what's mine, I corrected him. And yes, I'm walking away from people who don't respect me. It's long overdue. As I moved toward the door, my father reached for my arm. Ashley, please. Think about what you're doing. I gently removed his hand. I have thought about it, Dad. Probably more clearly than I ever have before. With that, I walked past them and out of the anteroom. Rather than cutting through the reception hall where my exit would cause a scene, I took the service corridor that led directly to the venue's main entrance. The night air felt cool and cleansing on my face as I stepped outside. The valet looked surprised to see a guest leaving so early but retrieved my car without comment. As I waited, Stephanie's Aunt Judith, the one who had smiled sympathetically at me during the rehearsal dinner, approached from the garden where she'd been smoking. Leaving already? She asked. Yes, I said simply. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I saw where they seated you. Shameful. That girl always did have a mean streak. Thank you for noticing, I said, surprising myself with how much those 4 simple words meant to me. Take care of yourself, dear. Sometimes family isn't who we're born to, it's who sees our worth. With those surprisingly wise words echoing in my mind, I drove away from my brother's wedding, the check for $5,000 in my purse and an unexpected lightness in my chest. Back in my hotel room, I changed out of my carefully chosen dress, ordered room service, and silenced my phone as it began lighting up with messages from my family. Tonight, I wouldn't engage. Tonight was for me. The next morning, I awoke to dozens of notifications, texts from my parents demanding explanations, several missed calls from Ryan, and one message from Grace, proud of you. Call me when you're ready. I ignored them all except Grace's, which I responded to with, checking out soon. We'll call from the road. As I packed my belongings, I felt oddly calm. There was grief, yes, for the relationship I'd thought I had with my brother, for the family support I'd always craved, but there was also a powerful sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I had chosen my own worth over others' expectations. Checking my email before checkout, I found a surprising message from Stephanie's college roommate Kimberly, my tablemate from the wedding. I don't know exactly what happened last night, but after you left, there was quite a commotion. Wanted to say I admire your courage. Nobody should be treated that way by family. If you're ever in Boston, first coffee's on me. As I drove home, my phone continued to buzz with messages. I finally listened to one voicemail from Ryan, recorded at 3 a.m. according to the timestamp. Ash, what you did was selfish and embarrassing. Stephanie is upset, Mom and Dad are upset, and you've ruined what should have been the happiest day of my life. I don't understand how you could be so self-centered. A pause, then, more quietly, but I also don't understand why I didn't notice how you were being treated. We need to talk when I get back from the honeymoon. I'm sorry if I hurt you. It wasn't a full acknowledgement. It wasn't even a particularly good apology. But it was the first crack in the facade, the first hint that perhaps, someday, Ryan might be ready to see the truth. I didn't respond. Not yet. That conversation could wait until I was stronger, clearer about my own boundaries. For now, I had a life to rebuild, one where I valued myself first. 3 months passed in a blur of focused work and self-discovery. The day after returning from Ryan's wedding, I deposited the $5,000 check and immediately put it toward what I'd originally intended, expanding my photography business. I leased a larger studio space in an up-and-coming arts district, invested in new equipment, and launched a marketing campaign targeting corporate clients needing professional headshots and event coverage. The results exceeded my expectations. Without the emotional drain of constantly seeking approval from my family, I channeled that energy into my business instead. I hired an assistant to manage bookings, allowing me to focus on the creative work I loved. My social media following doubled, then tripled. A local business magazine included me in their 30 Under 30 feature for emerging entrepreneurs. More importantly, I established firm boundaries with my family. After a week of ignored calls and messages, I sent a brief email explaining that I needed space to process years of accumulated hurt. My mother responded with defensive justifications, my father with awkward platitudes. Ryan, still on his honeymoon when I sent the email, remained silent. Grace became my rock during this period of limited family contact. You know they'll try to pull you back into the old patterns, she warned over dinner one evening. They're comfortable with you accepting less than you deserve. I know, I agreed. But I'm not the same person anymore. And I wasn't. Standing up for myself at the wedding had awakened something dormant inside me. A belief in my own worth that couldn't be diminished by others' opinions. This newfound confidence showed in my work, my interactions with clients, even my posture. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon 6 weeks after the wedding, Ryan appeared at my studio door. He stood awkwardly in the entrance, looking both familiar and like a stranger. Nice space, he said, glancing around at the exposed brick walls displaying my best work. Bigger than your last place. That was the idea, I replied, continuing to adjust lighting equipment rather than rushing to make him comfortable. What brings you here, Ryan? He shifted his weight. I thought we should talk. In person. I finished what I was doing before turning to face him fully. I have a client in 45 minutes. This won't take long. He took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking since the wedding. That's good. I'm sorry, Ash. The word seemed to pain him. I'm sorry about the seating. About not standing up for you. About taking your money when I knew how much you were struggling. I studied his face, looking for signs of the practiced charm he'd always used to smooth over conflicts. Instead, I saw genuine discomfort, the expression of someone confronting an uncomfortable truth. Why did you let it happen? I asked simply. He sank into a nearby chair, uninvited. I don't have a good answer. Stephanie was so stressed about everything being perfect. Her parents were contributing so much money. I just took the path of least resistance. And that path meant throwing your sister under the bus. He winced. I didn't see it that way at the time. That's the problem, Ryan. You didn't see me at all. I see you now, he said quietly, gesturing to the studio. You're doing amazing things here. Yes, I am. I allowed myself a small smile. No thanks to family support. Ryan looked down at his hands. Stephanie and I are in counseling. That surprised me. Already? You've been married 3 months. The wedding was just the beginning. Her treatment of you opened my eyes to other things. He hesitated. She has issues with control. With needing to be the center of attention. After you left, she was furious, not because she cared about you leaving, but because it took attention away from her. That sounds about right. Then my cousin Julia mentioned how Stephanie had deliberately excluded her from the bridal shower despite promising an invitation. And my friend Mark told me about Stephanie telling the photographer not to include him in group shots because he didn't fit the aesthetic. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. Once I started seeing the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said, and meant it. But I'm not sorry I left. I know. You shouldn't be. He met my eyes directly. It was brave. Braver than I'd been. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of family dynamics hanging between us. Mom and Dad want to see you, he finally said. They're processing things in their own way. I'm not ready for that yet. He nodded. I understand. For what it's worth, Dad's been asking a lot of questions about your business lately. I think he's trying to figure out how to show interest. That's a start, I guess. Ryan stood, sensing our time was coming to an end. Can we try again? As brother and sister? I miss you, Ash. I considered his question carefully. We can try. But things will be different. I won't accept being sidelined anymore, by you, by Stephanie, by anyone. That's fair. He hesitated. Stephanie is still working through her feelings about everything. She's not ready to apologize. I'm not holding my breath. As Ryan prepared to leave, he paused at the door. You know, it's strange. Several guests from the wedding have reached out to me specifically to ask about you. Stephanie's Aunt Judith. Her college roommate Kimberly. Even my boss, who was at table 3. They all noticed how you were treated, and they all admired how you handled it. I smiled. Sometimes strangers see us more clearly than family. After Ryan left, I felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because I'd held my ground. The old Ashley would have rushed to forgive, to smooth things over, to make Ryan comfortable at her own expense. The new Ashley knew her value. To my surprise, a week later, I received an email from Stephanie's Aunt Judith. She was organizing an art exhibition fundraiser for a children's hospital and wanted to know if I'd be interested in displaying and potentially selling my work at the event. I've been following your Instagram, she wrote. Your urban landscape series is exceptional. This unexpected connection led to my first gallery showing, which sold out opening night. The validation wasn't just financial but professional. My work was being recognized on its own merits, completely separate from my family's influence or opinion. My parents eventually made halting attempts at reconciliation. My mother still struggled to understand why I'd overreacted at the wedding, but my father surprised me with his evolution. During our first lunch together after the wedding, he asked thoughtful questions about my business model and proudly mentioned my studio to the waiter. I always knew you had talent, he said, studying one of my business cards. I just didn't understand your world. You never really tried before, I pointed out gently. He nodded, accepting the criticism. I'm trying now. As for Stephanie, she remained a distant figure in my life, Ryan's wife, but not someone I made efforts to know. She sent a stiff email acknowledging the unfortunate misunderstandings at the wedding but stopped short of an actual apology. I responded with polite neutrality. Some relationships weren't worth the investment. 6 months after the wedding, I received an unexpected honor, a nomination for a regional business award recognizing innovation in creative enterprises. The irony wasn't lost on me. Without reclaiming my $5,000 and investing it in myself rather than Ryan's wedding, this opportunity wouldn't have materialized. The morning of the award ceremony, a package arrived at my studio. Inside was a velvet jewelry box containing a pair of pearl earrings nearly identical to my grandmother's, which I'd pawned to contribute to Ryan's wedding. The note read simply, "To replace what was lost. Some traditions deserve to continue. Love, Dad." I wore those earrings that night as I accepted the runner-up award, scanning the audience to find my parents and Ryan, without Stephanie, applauding from their seats. They weren't in the front row, those spots were occupied by Grace and my new business associates, but they were present, witnessing my success rather than expecting me to orbit theirs. 2 days later, I welcomed clients into my newly expanded studio space for an open house celebration. Sunlight streamed through the skylights, illuminating photographs that represented not just my professional skill but my personal journey. In one corner hung a small, unlabeled piece, a photograph of an elegant wedding reception table, crystal centerpiece catching the light, empty chairs waiting for guests who would be valued and seen. It was the only wedding photograph I'd ever taken where I felt completely in control of the narrative. Standing in that light-filled space, surrounded by people who recognized my worth, I finally understood, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply walk away from those who don't value us. It isn't selfish. It isn't dramatic. It's necessary. And in that necessary ending, we make space for new beginnings. So if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever given pieces of yourself away only to be treated as an afterthought, remember my story. You deserve a seat at the table, the main table, not the one by the bathroom. And if that seat isn't offered, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up and leave. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping peace in your family and standing up for your own worth? Share your experiences in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it resonated with you. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful photographs emerge when we finally adjust our focus.